name's Dylan. I started playing the piano 13 years ago, and I started composing my own music about 10 years ago. I'm a student here at the Elder Conservatorium of Music. I've been studying here for about 3 years now. About 5 years ago, I started listening to Glenn Gould, really listening to Glenn Gould a lot. And the way he plays Bach is so inspirational. To become a composer, I think in our culture, which is different from other cultures, only a select handful of people are considered composers. But in other cultures, such as Papua New Guinea, or Australian Indigenous culture, everyone's a composer. People write their own music every day. You definitely need to have a very solid grounding in music theory. You need to know your theories, music theories, back to front to be a composer. That's how Arnold Schoenberg taught composition. He would teach theory, and then he would send his students into the world once he'd taught them theory. He wouldn't actually teach them composition. And while some people say, it's good to break the rules and be radical, first you have to know the rules before you can break the rules. Another skill that makes good composers is being a ruthless editor. You need to know which ideas are good and which ideas are bad, and you need to get rid of the bad ones, and you need to know how to make more of the good ones. I would say my favourite piece would have to be his Requiem, which is one of the most divine pieces of music ever written. And really I love all of his music. His early stuff is fantastic, and his later stuff is also fantastic, but the early stuff, before he met Haydn, his music was much more simplistic, and then after he learned from Haydn, he began to develop his music more. But I think both periods of his life have equal merit to them. I guess you could measure the success of a composer in terms of how much money they make. That's always, a way that culture seems to measure someone's success, in money. I don't think that's a great measure of success, though. I mean, look at how many great composers have died in poverty, and great artists as well. And then after their death, their music is hugely successful and hugely popular. I think probably the best way to measure success was explained to me recently by a Slovakian composer, Daniel Matej. He explains it in 4 stages. So, creation, interpretation, perception, and reception. So, that's the 4 stages of composition. So, the first is creating the piece, which the composer does. The second is interpreting the piece, which the performers will do. Perception is how it's perceived by the audience, and then reception is kind of like assimilation into a culture. So not only has the piece been composed, rehearsed, and performed, it's now being performed again and again and again. So it's becoming a part of the culture. So That's probably the best way you can measure the success of a composer, if that music has been assimilated into a culture.